I grew up in a small coastal town where life moved slowly, and everyone seemed to know everyone. It was the kind of place where fishing boats lined the harbor, and the salty breeze carried the laughter of kids playing by the docks. Summers were marked by community festivals, with seafood feasts and bonfires on the beach, while winters brought storms that tested the resilience of our tight-knit community. The rhythm of life was simple but steady, built on traditions passed down through generations. My days were spent working at a local hardware store, a quiet, predictable existence. Most evenings, I'd tinker with my dad's old fishing boat, a rusting relic he'd left behind when he passed. I remember sitting on its deck as a child, watching him patiently untangle nets while humming old sea shanties. He used to say the boat had a soul, that every crack and rust spot told a story of battles with storms and bountiful catches. Working on it now felt like keeping a part of him alive, a small connection to a man who had taught me resilience and the value of hard work. It wasn't much, but it gave me purpose. My biggest worry was whether the engine would ever roar to life again, not knowing how insignificant those concerns would soon feel. The day it all changed started like any other. The sun cast a warm glow on the town as I walked to work, passing neighbors tending their gardens and children riding their bikes along the cobblestone streets. The scent of fresh bread wafted from the bakery on Main Street, mingling with the salty tang of the ocean breeze. At the hardware store, I spent the morning restocking shelves and chatting with Mr. Reynolds about his leaky roof. It was peaceful, uneventful, a day that gave no hint of the chaos that was about to erupt. The sun cast a golden glow over the town as I stocked shelves and chatted with regulars. Then, out of nowhere, the loudspeakers crackled to life, their usual monotone announcements replaced by urgent, panicked orders to evacuate. A meltdown at a nearby energy facility, the words hit me like a slap. The town had always been quiet, safe. This kind of thing happened elsewhere, not here. I remember the chaos vividly. People flooded the streets, some clutching children, others hastily throwing bags into car trunks. Smoke loomed on the horizon, a dark harbinger of the disaster closing in. My first instinct was to rush home, grabbing a small backpack and stuffing it with whatever seemed useful. A flashlight, some canned food, my father's hunting knife. I didn't take much. I thought it would only be a few days. How wrong I was. The highway was a nightmare. Cars jammed every lane, their drivers abandoning them to walk instead. A wave of desperation rippled through the crowd as rumors spread, radiation leaks, contamination zones, entire towns already lost. I joined the flow of people on foot, clutching my backpack tightly. Fear was a physical thing, a weight pressing on my chest with every step. By nightfall, the makeshift camps began to form. Families huddled around fires, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames and etched with exhaustion. Arguments broke out over the smallest things, a bottle of water, a spare blanket. I tried to stay on the edges, avoiding the rising tensions. That night, I realized something fundamental: survival was no longer a given. It was a fight, and the rules had changed. The next morning, a crackling battery-powered radio delivered the news we feared. Containment efforts had failed. Radiation was spreading, and entire regions were being quarantined. My hometown was likely one of them. I stared at the horizon. The image of its quiet streets and familiar faces burned into my mind. Guilt gnawed at me. I had escaped, but what about everyone else? I found temporary refuge with a small group in a deserted farmhouse. At first, it was a fragile comfort. We scavenged supplies from nearby barns, pooling what little we had. Trust was our only currency, and it was in short supply. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow at the window felt like a threat. One night, an argument over rations erupted into violence. I stepped between them, my hands trembling as I tried to defuse the situation. It was then I realized how close we all were to the edge, how thin the line was between civility and chaos. Days blurred together as we moved from one abandoned place to the next. The world was unrecognizable. Fields lay barren, their crops withered from contamination. Streams that once sparkled now carried a deadly taint. Boiling water became a ritual, though it never truly eased my fears of what might still linger unseen. The sight of dead animals, livestock collapsed in fields, birds littering the ground, haunted me. Then came the authorities. Armed patrols scoured the countryside, rounding up anyone suspected of contamination or unauthorized travel. We stumbled upon a roadblock one evening, their stern faces illuminated by harsh floodlights. My heart raced as I lied about our destination, my voice steady despite the storm of fear inside me. They let us pass, but the encounter left a scar. Survival was not just about food and shelter, it was a game of deception and luck. The worst moment came when we learned the reactor's core was critically damaged. Radiation seeped into the environment, poisoning the very air we breathed. People in our group began to fall ill. Fevers, rashes, and unrelenting weakness. Supplies dwindled. I took it upon myself to scavenge further afield, breaking into abandoned homes and stores. Each time, a mix of guilt and determination churned in my stomach. I told myself it wasn't stealing, it was survival. But even within our small group, trust eroded. One night, I woke to find a member gone, along with a stash of medicine and food. The betrayal cut deeper than I expected. It wasn't just the loss of resources, it was the realization that desperation could strip away our humanity. When it became clear we couldn't stay, I made a decision. The coast was our only hope. Rumors suggested radiation levels were lower there, and perhaps we could find a boat, away off the mainland. Saying goodbye to those too weak to travel was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Their eyes, hollow and resigned, haunted me as I walked away. The journey to the coast was grueling. My legs ached, my stomach twisted with hunger. When I finally reached the beach, it was both a relief and a heartbreak. Abandoned boats dotted the shoreline, their sails tattered, their hulls worn by neglect. The horizon was shrouded in heavy clouds, an ominous backdrop to the desolation. I found a small motorboat, its engine barely functional. Using tools scavenged from nearby docks, I pieced it together as best I could. Time was against me. In the distance, a tremor shook the earth, followed by a pillar of smoke rising into the sky. The reactor had gone critical. As I pushed the boat into the water and started the sputtering engine, I looked back one last time. The land I had called home was a wasteland now, but out at sea, there was a glimmer of hope. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't stay. The open water stretched endlessly before me, a vast unknown. But as I drifted further from the shore, a strange sense of calm washed over me. I had survived the unthinkable, with nothing but a backpack and a will to keep going. The world behind me was in ruins, but out here, there was still a chance. A chance to rebuild, to endure, to hope. Even in the darkest moments, survival has a way of igniting something deep within us. And as I navigated the waves, I held on to that spark, letting it guide me through the uncertain horizon ahead.